Welcome to tonight's meeting. I would like to remind the trustees that due to our meeting being conducted virtually, each vote will be a roll call. When speaking, please state your name, especially before you vote. I will try to remind you of that because this is all quite new. This is probably the very first trustee meeting we've ever had 100% virtual. So we'll take it one step at a time throughout the evening. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Chair Fleming.
Here.
Vice Chair Milliken.
Here.
Treasurer Davis.
Here.
Secretary DeVarty.
Dave DeVarty here.
Trustee Hatcher. Trustee Landau.
Here.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda? Please state your name.
Landau, so moved.
Thank you. A second?
Trustee DeVarty, second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the agenda tonight? Hearing none, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Chair Fleming.
Trustee Fleming, yes.
Vice Chair Milliken.
Vice Chair Milliken, yes.
Treasurer Davis.
Treasurer Davis, yes.
Secretary DeVarty.
Trustee DeVarty, yes.
Trustee Landau.
Landau, yes.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to tab A, approval of the minutes. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes of February 25th as submitted. Please state your name first. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
Trustee DeVarty moved that we accept the minutes.
Treasurer Davis supports.
Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Vanessa, please call roll.
Chair Fleming.
Chair Fleming, yes.
Vice Chair Milliken.
Milliken, yes.
Treasurer Davis.
Treasurer Davis, yes.
Secretary DeVarty.
DeVarty, yes.
Trustee Landau.
Landau, yes.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
McKnight Morton, yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to citizen participation. First, we invite Ms. Julie Kissel for the WCCEA. Hello, Ms.
Taking
Kissel.
a while. Here we go. Hello.
No.
He's muted.
Well, a little over a month ago when I spoke to the board, I don't think I could have believed that my first address as the WCCA president would be during a global pandemic. These past weeks have really been a blur for many of us, and while there is much to be uneasy about, I just staff here at WCC. Our students most definitely are looking to us for stability, and they are finding it. We are teaching, supporting, guiding, consoling, or even just sharing a smile online. Our students are remarkable as well. They, for the most part, are showing up. They want to be connected to campus just as much as the rest of us. And it's not easy, but keeping our community connected through education is so valuable this time. So this connection to campus life has been so much part of my daily conversation. And every day I'm connecting with faculty and staff from FPD to CITL to HR to counseling, the deans, administrative assistants, the VPI, President Belanca. And I don't think any of us knew that we could field so many emails, text messages, phone calls, or video conferences in one day. But we are
Okay, thank you, Julie. That was really nice. Moving on to further public comments. Vanessa, are there any public comments received?
There was one received. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
The comment is, with the current events going on many university and colleges, like our close neighbors, the University of Michigan, have announced that all summer courses held will take place virtually to help stop the spread and keep everyone safe from unnecessary risks. Does Washtenaw Community College have a similar plan to do the same? And if so, will the same courses and resources usually offered during a summer term be offered so that students do not miss out and are forced to take extra semesters of schooling, which is something they might not be able to afford to do?
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Were there any other written communications received?
No.
Okay.
Not on
Thank you.
time.
Not on time? Okay. Then they go to the next month.
Okay.
Sorry, my microphone. Okay, moving on to special reports. First up are the diversity initiatives. The vendor diversity report by Ms. Barbara Fillinger. Are you ready, Barbara?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, I'm Barb Fillinger, Director of Budget and Purchasing, and I will be presenting the vendor diversity report this evening. Next slide, please. During this presentation, we will be reviewing the purchasing policy covering the 2018-19 total non-construction purchasing activity, how the purchasing department develops the vendor base, the purchasing practices, activities that we have completed to increase the diversity of our vendors, examples of the types of spending we have with minority and women-owned vendors, and finally a 3-year trend of non-construction purchasing activity. Next slide, please. The purchasing agent acting in the best interest of the college is required to, for purchases costing less than $3,000, the purchasing agent will use his or her best judgment to acquire the goods and services. For items costing between $3,000 and $10,000, purchasing must request free bona fide quotes. For items costing $10,000 or more, purchasing must request free bona fide written sealed bids. Next slide, please. This pie chart shows the non-construction purchasing activity for fiscal year 2019. The large green section reflects 79% of the fiscal year 19 spend. This includes orders that were less than $3,000, and it also reflects large recurring service contracts such as Elution, Blackboard, CampusWorks, and Oracle, and technology purchases from Apple and Dell, as well as other large corporate sole source or unique providers such as Google and Siemens. The blue section reflects purchases made with the P-card. Because we receive a rebate from the bank, accounts payable also uses the P-card to pay vendors that do not charge us any type of fee to pay with a credit card. The majority of other purchases made on the P-card are for conference travel and orders typically $500 or less. In 2019, the college received a rebate from the bank of $57,535. The yellow section represents purchases that were made through the bid and quote process. The college issued 76 non-construction bids and quotes during fiscal year 2019. Examples of some of the items were welding steel and metals, software, our annual flowers, cameras, the launch, and on-the-record publications. Next slide, please. The purchasing vendor base is developed by recommendations by the requisitioner, checking trade and commodity publications. We contact the manufacturer for authorized distributors in or close to Washtenaw County. Vendors contact us requesting to be placed on the list. the State of Michigan My Deal contract, purchasing consortiums such as NAVP, E&I, and Consortia, the Michigan Minority Business Development Council. All vendors in the vendor base have been contacted to see if they're minority or women owned. Next slide, please. Purchasing strives to ensure that the requisitioner receives the exact items that they ordered at the lowest possible price. Purchasing will issue purchase orders to the lowest responsible bidder, meeting the quality, delivery, and service criteria specified in the bid or quote documentation. Next slide, please. Purchasing does give preference to Washtenaw County vendors where price and quality are equal or where there is a definite advantage to being local, such as proximity for service calls. Per the Michigan Community College Act, preference is also given to vendors located in the state of Michigan. Next slide, please. Activities that have been taken to increase the diversity of our vendors are: we are members of the Michigan Minority Business Development Council. We are planning to attend the Michigan Minority Procurement Conference located in Detroit in May 2019. At this conference, we are able to meet vendors to determine if they are offering goods and services that the college needs. We have built and continue to update a database consisting of over 430 minority and women-owned vendors across multiple industries and services. We added the requirement for all solicitations $20,000 or higher. We need to include at least one minority-owned company if they are available. Next slide, please. Types of spend that we have awarded to minority or women-owned vendors are custodial services, technology needs, instructional supplies, program evaluation, training for faculty and staff, temporary staffing, catering, childcare services, interior plant maintenance, promotional items, transcription, and closed captioning. Next slide, please. This slide shows a 3-year trend for non-construction activities. The first line represents the total non-construction purchase orders issued. The second line is for large recurring services such as our legacy technology partners, Solutions, Blackboard, and Oracle, general insurance providers, library subscription and book providers, technology hardware providers such as Apple and Dell, furniture and other large corporate sole source unique providers such as Google, Siemens, and Campus Works. The third line is the remaining purchase orders once we have removed the large recurring activities. The fourth line reflects the purchase orders that were issued to minority and women-owned vendors. As you can see, through the efforts that have been taken by the purchasing team, we have been able to increase the amount spent by 2% over 2 years, or $330,000 since 2017. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fillinger. Do any trustees have questions?
How do I do a question?
Just ask.
Oh, okay, good. I just wondered if you have a sense that you're making progress with hiring of women and minorities or standing still?
I think we are too making progress. The team has done a remarkable job of really building out the database. And truthfully, for every order or bid, quote, or RFP that goes out, they always try to include minority or women-owned vendors in the initial solicitation, always. So I think they are truly making big strides.
Thank you.
Any other questions from trustees? Okay, thank you. We will go on to the next report, affirmative action report by AVP Mihaly. Are you ready, Mr. Mihaly?
I am. It's Chris.
Sorry, Ms. Mihaly.
That's okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well and staying safe. Tonight, I'm going to review some highlights of our affirmative action report, which covers the period of January 16th, 2018 to January 16th, 2019. Next slide. Here's the agenda for my presentation. We'll do a reminder review of the policy statement, talk about the initiatives that we took this past year and our outcomes, as well as our continued focus. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, we have a Board of Trustees policy on affirmative action. That's policy 5010. And our affirmative action policy statement is that the college will seek and employ qualified personnel and provide equal opportunities during the employment process. The college will not discriminate based on religion, race, color, national origin, age, sex, height, weight, disability, veteran status, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or any other protected status. And the college's employment of women and minority individuals shall be aligned with the employed population of Washtenaw County. Next slide. So our initiatives this past year really focused on the policies that we have in HR. We wanted to take a look back at what we've been doing and how we can adjust our policies to heighten the recruitment and selection practices in support of building a diverse workplace. So there were 4 initiatives that we focused on. We looked at our strategic recruitment efforts. We looked at reduction of bias in the selection process. We focused our review of underutilized areas. And then lastly, we took a harder look at our commitment to diversity and inclusion in recruitment and selection. Next slide. Our first initiative was on strategic recruitment efforts. So this was truly a collaboration between HR and our hiring managers. And what we were trying to do was to reach a greater pool of diverse candidates. At the risk of giving away all of our secrets, basically what we did is we had our HR generalist, who is Megan Kiefer, work directly with hiring managers. And we changed the way that we recruited applicants. We use social media. You can find out a lot of things on social media. You can find a lot of people who aren't necessarily looking for a job. We went out there and we searched and we reached out to people one-on-one based on affiliations or contacts that they had as listed on social media. And again, this was one by one by our recruiter or one by one by the hiring manager. So what we did is we took a look at the way that we were recruiting based on our past history and realized that a one-size-based-all recruiting effort didn't work anymore. And we knew that last year too, but we hadn't dived down this deep into one-on-one recruiting, which we did start last year. The other thing that we've done is in our outside and also internal recruiting events, we invited our faculty and staff outside of HR to participate. As I mentioned, we had some events on campus, but we've also had some success in Lansing at Michigan State at a diversity job fair there, where we had some of our faculty and our staff join us and help to recruit potential candidates for the positions that we had. This past year, we saw some success. Our efforts resulted in a 40% or higher diverse applicant pool for several of our positions, as well as a 41% new hire rate during this past reporting year. Next slide, please. So here's a review of exactly what I'm talking about. So since 2016 up until 2018, we were looking at holding right around mid 20% with our new hire minority percentage rate. This past year, we just about doubled that up to 41%. And again, that's our full-time new hire minority percentage rate for 2019. Next slide, please. Another initiative that we had was reduction of bias in the selection process. And we started this the year before as well. But again, this was a collaboration between HR and our hiring managers, but with complete support by our executive team. We went as far as requiring diversity training for all of our hiring managers and our search committee. VPI Hearns really played a role in this in requiring all department chairs and all faculty members that were going to participate in a search committee to go through the training, as well as all of our hiring managers and any other faculty or any other staff member that was also going to participate on a search committee. The topics that we covered during this required training was diversity and implicit bias, fair hiring practices, And again, anyone who participated in a search committee had to go through this training prior to their appointment. In addition to required training, we also upped our voluntary training for all of our faculty and staff. Topics such as unconscious bias in the workplace, confronting bias, thriving across our differences, mindfully exploring social identity, and then implicit bias for college instructors was also offered on a voluntary basis. Next slide. So our outcomes of this initiative, so we supported 87 different full-time searches during this reporting period. We had 150 faculty and staff that participated in our diversity training sessions. 40 faculty and staff were trained in order to join a search committee. We had over 100 faculty and staff participate in voluntary training sessions. And I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing on campus is a cultural shift in recognizing diversity and inclusion in the selection process. We know that any cultural change takes time, but we're starting to hear diversity, we're starting to hear inclusion among our faculty and staff. This is in general conversation when we're talking about recruiting and other initiatives on campus. And to me, that's a big step in the right direction. Next slide, please. So here are outcomes comparing where we are to the county benchmark. In regard to minority presentation, the county benchmark upon our last review has risen to 30%. It was at 26%. Our new hire representation, minority representation this past year was 41%, and our promotions were at 32%. In regard to female representation, WCC versus the county, the benchmark for the county is 50%. Our new hire female representation is 62%, and our promotions are at 71%. Next slide. So another area of review for us was taking a look at our underutilized areas, and again, collaboration between HR and the hiring manager. What we did differently this year is we really did a deep dive on that search process in regard to an area that was identified as underutilized. Our HR generalist, Megan Kiefer, again, worked directly with the hiring manager in helping them to appoint a diverse search committee. Sometimes it's really easy to ask people to be on your search committee that are right within your department, and we may be missing that diverse opportunity to ask people outside of our department and get a fresh perspective. So we really made sure that these search committees had diverse representation. We helped the hiring manager to develop interview questions that explore job qualifications and requirements, so staying away from any biases they may have. And I know that kind of sounds like a simple thing, but really it's pulling everybody back to looking at what the job description is. What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to do that job, and then basing our selection criteria on that. We also published for our hiring managers what areas were considered as underutilized, so that anytime, one of our areas had a position open, they were aware of where they stood in regard to our minority and female hiring. And then lastly, what we did was we created interview question templates by classification that would allow hiring managers that are hiring faculty or hiring custodial maintenance or OPT that has a standard template to start with in regard to questions for their interview committee. And of course, they could adjust it based on what the position is, but at least a standard guideline for them to start with. Next slide. And lastly, as simple as this sounds, we really looked at our commitment to diversity and inclusion with our advertising. We have our job site that we're able to display the messages that we want, and as well as our postings. And our postings are not only placed on our WCC job site, but they are picked up nationally. LinkedIn, I'm trying to think what else. Indeed, also pick up our postings, and they'll post for us as well. So what we wanted to do was to reiterate our commitment to diversity and inclusion in our recruitment, selection, and faculty staff success. So we focused on inclusive and gender sensitive language in our postings and our onboarding materials. And below, or actually what you see on the screen, is just a simple statement that we put out there, not only to express to our public, to the public and our candidates that are looking at WCC, but also as a reminder to our hiring committee and to our hiring manager of what we're focusing on. So just as simple as Washtenaw Community College seeks to recruit and retain a diverse workforce as a reflection of our commitment to serving our diverse community and to build on the success of our students, faculty, and staff. We are committed to creating an inclusive, welcoming environment. Next slide, please. And lastly, so this is a chart of what we're looking at. Our focus primarily over the last 2 years has been on our faculty minority percentage rate. We are working hard at ensuring that our faculty minority percentage is matching the student population as well. And we've been moving up. It's been a slow move, but we are making progress. If we look back at 2016, when we were at 20% minority representation with our full-time faculty, we have jumped about 5 percentage points through 2019. And again, that has truly been an effort of working directly with our department chairs, our faculty, and VPI HERNs. Next slide. So what our plan is to do this year and going forward is, again, to continue looking at these recruitment efforts. Again, one size doesn't fit all. What else can we be doing to target diverse applicants via social media and other methods? We have hired a dedicated HR recruiter. Christian Flanagan is our recruiter. He came with us this past summer, and he's been learning processes and getting up to speed. And Christian has come to us from Oakland University with a background and experience in diversity recruiting and selection. So we're very excited to have him on staff, and it is our hope that within the next couple months, he will be completely up and running in this HR recruiter role and helping us with our diversity recruiting. In addition, we're going to continue to look at our bias awareness and reduction, continue to look at raising awareness of bias in interviewing and selection process, and then continuing to look at our practices as well and how we can adjust our practices to ensure fairness and equity. And lastly, our commitment to diversity message. We have a marketing team on staff, so we hope to identify additional and creative messaging for our target audience. That completes my presentation. I have open up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, AVP Mahaley. Do any trustees have questions or comments for the affirmative action report?
Yes, this is Diana McKnight. Excuse me, I have not been feeling well. So excuse my appearance. I just want to say for so many years, I am so happy to hear the process of trying to do recruitment for minorities, not just Black, but everyone that is in a minority category. This is so important because looking at our community, we have to do it to be the representative that they will feel comfortable. I think we're on the right target, and maybe there's more things that could be learned to increase this, but at least we do, you hired someone to really work into this area to bump up our numbers and try to keep it there with the best people possible. Thank you so much for the staff and everyone who is working on this very diligently. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. This was a really good report. The one thing that impressed me that was different was the use of social media to do the outreaching and recruiting. I think that's really cool. You get a certain specific audience for just the applicants that come to you, but you made more effort to go out and find those candidates. So that's really cool and interesting to me. Did I hear another trustee pipe up?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Trustee,
Go
want.
ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave,
I wanted
first.
to- I'm sorry.
Or who was it?
Trustee DeVarty, I actually
Okay.
have three questions as the presentation was rolling that I wrote down. Are the hiring managers, are they in-house staff or contract employees?
The hiring managers are in-house staff.
Okay. And do those come from whatever departments are relevant to the specific hiring?
Yes.
Okay. The new hires, 41% diversity among new hires. Does that include replacement positions as well as totally new positions?
Yes. So the new hire does, it takes into, in fact, anybody new that has come into the college that was not part-time. So that's the other thing. So part-timers are not considered new hires. They would be considered promotions. So a new hire is for a new position or a replacement, someone that is not currently working at the college.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And last, our benchmark for new hires is broadly among the staff is our benchmark is the minority population in the county. The benchmark for diversity among faculty that you showed the chart, what is the percentage of minority students on campus? You know that as a benchmark?
I believe, and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, the fall presentation, I believe it was at 30 or 32%. I don't remember that number offhand.
Okay, and I just wanted to say congratulate you. I think we're making great progress on increasing the diversity at all levels of staff.
Thank you.
Did another trustee have a comment?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is Trustee
I
Dave.
want-
If I can
Okay.
get something real quick. I want to say, actually, Trustee McKnight Morton touched on a number of things relating to the excellent layout of the presentation. This is really good. It really shows that we are moving in the right direction, and that you personally, among your office staff, have really put your heads down and really did a creative job in ironing out the bugs of how to really tap into the minority and diverse population. So kudos to you guys for that. And I trust that with this being a template that you will further, iron out the kinks and such to make it even better, because there's always room for improvement. But still, pat on the back for that. Also, too, I want to find out, and I can get it later. I mean, we don't have to do it right now. But even though the increase in the minority hiring, say like 3%, as I saw, do you see a higher percentage increase in a certain minority group opposed to another? Because yes, it wasn't mentioned here in the presentation. You gave an overall view, which is great, but did you see more of a bump up increase in certain minority groups opposed to others?
I don't, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't have that information just off the top of my head, but we can definitely go back and look at that. Again, we pull it together as a total among all, but we can definitely look at that breakout and get back to you.
I mean, that'd be really great. Like I said, not right now. I mean, because we have a lot on the plate right now. But sometime down the road, it'll be really great to get that information, because myself, and I'm sure some of the other trustees here on the call, are interested in just really wanting to find out, mainly like for the African American males, the African American females, other minority groups that have been underrepresented, just how much of an increase we are really attracting their attention. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Hatcher, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. First, I wanted to congratulate them, particularly on the training I think there used to be more coercion, and now I think training is a much better way of changing the culture of hiring and interviewing and expectations. The other thing I'd like to suggest is when you, in your report, when you report the total full-time workforce data, and you talk about minority percentage and female percentage and so forth, it would be nice to know the total number of staff that's in each category. In other words, under custodial maintenance, it's 33% minority, but I don't know how many custodial maintenance people there are. Do you see what I mean? So in that 2019 and 2018, that would be useful information to have next time, not this time. And I look forward to my org charts someday. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from the trustees? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Moving on, and thank you, AVP Mahaley. Moving on to our next report, the Diversity and Inclusion Update with VP Hearns. Are you ready, Dr. Hearns?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Go ahead.
All right. I am going to be talking about, kind of our year in review as it relates to diversity and inclusion. Of course, I am not the dean of this area, but we have managed this year to really build upon the work that was done in that area, and we'll be looking forward to getting that job filled. But just as a reminder, when we go over this report, we always break it up after we talk about board policy in the areas of student success, access, equity, and inclusion. And so we'll be doing that again this year. Next slide, please. We always start this report off with a reminder about our board policy 8028 and some of the key tenets of that policy. Again, focusing on access, success, equity for all diverse people. And as a reminder, we include slides that actually are added to campus during the beginning of the fall semester to all of our students and remind them of diversity on campus. Next slide. That 8028 board policy includes a promotion of awareness and appreciation of cultural diversities, their differences and commonalities. Next slide. Which includes promoting a climate of access, success, and equity for all persons. Next slide. And one of the pieces of that board policy that is extremely important is that we work to create and maintain a diverse teaching, learning, and work environment. So again, when we think about our Office of Diversity and the report that we're going over, it's not just about diversity and inclusion, but really thinking about student success and making sure that we have a diverse perspective in our teaching and how all students learn. Next slide. The other piece, and you can click through the three pieces to this slide, I'm sorry. The other piece, WCC Board Policy 2005. Again, we always remind during this presentation every year that the college was always ahead and really codifying a commitment to not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression in any of our educational programs or related activities that we offer on campus. So those two board policies really kind of set the groundwork for the work that we do in this area. Next slide. So we're going to focus on some of the things that we've done in the area of access. Next slide. I think it's important to also note as we look at our slide here that talks about STEAM Week is that a lot of things that we've been doing this past year, I think really have a good theme of synergy and collaboration. So although they fall into the in this area, you will also see that a lot of them kind of cross-pollinate a bit. So one of the things from an access standpoint in STEAM Week was really focusing on science, technology, engineering, arts, as well as math and promoting that from an outreach standpoint. Every day of the week of STEAM Week, we had busloads of students come in from our county high schools. We had a variety of speakers. We combined STEAM Week with the kickoff of CTE Month. So another part of STEAM Week included focusing on the different occupational areas and how they relate to engineering, math, the arts, and science. You'll see one of the pictures there with Dean Greaves and two of our male nursing students talking about their program. And we had a kickoff every single day of different areas, occupational areas, and making that connection back. We also made sure that there was a lot of diversity in our speakers and who we brought to campus. We also connected this event with a high school event and providing awards to local high school teachers who teach in STEM. So we partner with the Michigan STEM Network. In addition to that, all of the companies that we partner with came to campus and supported us in some of the programming in our high school celebration, one of the evenings, and two of our own STEM scholars were actually awarded scholarships. We kicked off the STEM week with a alum who graduated from Washtenaw Community College, transferred to the University of Michigan, and worked at NASA as an engineer. And in addition to serving as our keynote, she stayed on campus for 2 full days working in workshops, talking to students, having lunch with students. And she also left us a very nice, generous check for a scholarship. Next slide. Minority student outreach. We continue to make sure that we're making strides in serving our community in the whole county, and that we are doing outreach to Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, Belleville, and specific Ann Arbor public schools. A lot of presentations have been continued as it relates to parents and recruitment events. Our annual presentation, which we're actually increasing with the Ministerial Alliance, and also with a lot of parent involvement initiatives in the area. There's a lot more outreach happening as it relates to parent engagement, and we're sponsoring those events. We're doing a lot of outreach and community support in those areas. Although the increase, well, it shifted a lot, but the unemployment rate being down so low really saw a lot of shifting in our minority population. So the retention of those students seemed to be a little bit harder to keep consistent, but we were increasing. We had an 8% increase from last fall of our new students. So we know these outreach initiatives are making impact. We also saw an increase, a full utilization of our high school scholarships. We have scholarships at all high schools. We actually increased the utilization of those scholarships. That really did help with that 8% increase. And we were very happy and pleased to see those scholarships used at Ypsilanti schools and Lincoln Consolidated. Next slide, please. About a year ago, from a student success standpoint, we talked about high school GPA, and we also had a really great conversation about prerequisite. So 2 initiatives that we implemented this past fall, one being high school GPA for placement. And so the 3.0 GPA from high school had been a placement tool that had been used in math. And that implementation started about 3 years ago. And we've been able to maintain consistent progress in regards to our success rates in those courses. We were very pleased with the results there. So this fall, we implemented that for and we had an 85% success rate in those college level courses of that 100 students who were increased and placed in a college level. And that is compared to a 75% success rate of all college level courses across the board. I think it's important to note, because we're constantly watching the results and kind of making sure that what we're doing is making the right impact. And our IR department did research on this shift to high school GPA. And what they noted in the green box there is that high school GPA, and using our own data, was significantly correlated with success in our English 111 course, and it predict that success better than AccuPlacer and SAT scores. So we're very pleased. We'll continue to watch those numbers But again, more students getting into college level courses in that freshman year is a strong predictor of long-term student success. We also implemented prerequisite audits, which meant that the faculty actually looked at the courses, their entry-level courses, and evaluated whether or not the reading and writing levels were where they needed to be, and if we could get more students placed in those occupational courses along with whatever their other needs might be, so that they are able to have a full-time schedule and move towards success and completion in their certificates and programs. So 3 areas actually implemented some changes in regards to their actual prereqs on their occupational programs: construction, auto service, and medical billing. And we have some other programs looking at that option as well. Next slide. All right, so we're going to talk about student success. And I think one of the areas, one of the things that you'll know consistently with our success areas is that we really started to look at students, and looking at those core cohorts has really allowed us to proactively think about interventions to produce more student success and help students drive to completion. Next slide, please. So in fall 2017, we executed or unveiled a goal, which was quite audacious at the time, to increase our graduation rate, our IPEDS, the score that we report to the government, to 20% by 2020. And I think that the implementation of this goal actually included a lot of education for faculty and staff on campus, and it actually got a lot of excitement around us all working collectively towards something. And I am pleased to announce that we are going to surpass our 20% goal. If you look at our chart there, in 2015, we were at a 17% increase, a 17% graduation rate. And our work starting in fall 2017 allowed us to have some kind of backwards impact on that fall 2016 cohort, which we've already reported at 20%, which was a great accomplishment for the college. And then for fall 2017, we've not reported that number yet, but we're already at 20%. And we still have until the end of the summer to report those numbers. And we feel like we're on track for fall 2018 to continue to move that number past the 20% mark. We continue to extend the goal and scale. So we've moved that goal to 21% and 22%. And we're hoping that we continue to move that number. Overall, we've also seen a 16% degrees in graduates in our last May graduation. And it's important to note that really looking at a lot of the policies that we've looked at and some of the small changes that really add up have made a big impact on all students. But we still are looking to scale the work that we've been doing even more. We also want to focus more specifically on our part-time students, since they're such a large population for the college. Next slide, please. Our scholarship reception, this past fall was our 3rd year doing a scholarship reception. And one of the things that we were very intentional about doing is using the language of family as it relates to our scholarship students, so we could be more inclusive of all of their backgrounds and everybody who they wanted to take on this journey with them. And you'll note that on this slide, you'll see some pictures on this slide that we had a 98% retention rate fall to winter of those scholarship students. While we were a little bit more focused on making sure that we were tracking. So that I just want to make sure that we're seeing that the things that we're doing are making impact and what we need to do to shift to make them help more students. Next slide, please. And you can click through all of this. I'm sorry, there's a box on a side that'll show up. Our scholarship cohort continues to be one of the areas where we think we can make a lot of progress. Although scholarship students have received a scholarship, not our success rates and our completion rate, persistence rates of those students were not always consistent in where they should be. So our fall 2018 cohort, we have a fall to fall retention rate of 82%. And one of the things to note with the cohorts for scholarship students, we're really pleased to see the number of credit hours that those students are taking increase. That is a key factor in seeing students gain momentum and successfully move to completion of their degrees. We had a little bit of dip from fall to winter in our persistent rates, but those numbers are continuing to hold, and we're working on making sure we understand where some shifts are at, even if it's 1 or 2%. Next slide, please. Another thing that we implemented, and this was a new initiative that we implemented this past fall, 2 of our faculty worked in a national program called Recruitment, and they had an idea that we have a student success conference and really kick off the semester for students, talking about what are the keys to success. We had a student speaker both at our fall and winter student success conference, relevant breakouts. We had a lot of faculty and staff volunteers, really cool door prizes. And it was a really a neat event. I think the students asked a lot of good questions, and it was a really great way to kind of wrap around them right before school started. We hosted this event the Friday week, which was a little bit, I would say it was a stressful week. It was a lot going on that week, but faculty and staff were so excited to volunteer, meet students. In some instances, students kind of made a lot of friends and built relationships before school started. And what we've seen is an 85% retention of those students from fall to winter. So again, really comparing, are these initiatives making a difference in how we're seeing our students persist from semester to semester and be retained from year to year? Next slide, please. Our Brother to Brother program, although Dean Jennings is not with us and he had kicked off this program, we have continued to have Brother to Brother meet. Caleb Boswell, who is one of our counselors, was very excited to take on this program and meet with the young men. They meet weekly. And I think one of the big pieces of progress that they made this year is Caleb really wanted it to be student-driven program. So you'll notice there that the mission statement is shared, and that is a mission statement that the young men came up with on their own. They developed their own mission statement. They have dialogue and guest speakers weekly, and it really has been a great support group for the young men, and those students are persisting and finding leadership roles at the college, and we're very pleased about that. Next slide, please. Micro scholarships. This is something else that we've implemented this year, and it really started off with our Finish Line Scholarship. There was an internal initiative to come up with ideas and benchmark work that we had seen in other areas. So our foundation worked with Student Services and our retention committee to reach out to WCC students who had stopped out, offer them a scholarship, and return to WCC and complete a degree. One of the unique things about the Finish Line Scholarship is that it had over 100% success, and that many of the students that were contacted returned to campus, did not even apply for the scholarship, but came back and finished their degree. We've expanded that to include what we call a completion scholarship and a momentum scholarship. The completion scholarship allows us to look at our cohorts of students who are between 100 and 150% or almost there with their degree, and help them by offering them a micro scholarship to complete their degree on time. And then our momentum scholarship offers students who are in their second semester a small scholarship to help them stay full-time that second semester. About 40% of our students who are full-time the first fall will move to part-time in that second semester. So we want to encourage students to maintain momentum so that they can stay kind of on the track to their goals. And we're still looking at the numbers on those, the completion and the momentum scholarships, as those are new. But we've had great success with the Finish Line Scholarship. And in most cases, the scholarships are a $250 scholarship for students, and it goes a long way to help them complete their goals. Next slide, please. Some other support strategies that we've had that I thought were important to also remember, to make note of, is our collegiate recovery program. And I think that's a unique example in that that program was also something that our health dean leveraged as a way to do some diversity professional development for her faculty to help them better understand the diverse perspectives of people who are going through recovery. That program just celebrated 1 year and is definitely one of the things that we consider a part of our success strategies. Other things have included CTE, career and technical education study breaks, student focus groups where we're getting feedback from students, our Monday motivation emails, and creating leadership opportunities for students to work on some of the programs that we're hosting on campus. For CTE month and STEAM week, there were a lot of students who volunteered to be a part of the street team and do peer advising and support for other students. And then finally, group advising has been another tool that is used with a lot of our cohorts to help kind of push them in thinking about, what are their next steps and their goals. Next slide, please. Equity. Next slide. All right. So from an equity standpoint, we continue to grow the programs and opportunities for professional development. I think one of the cornerstones of this past year's programming was the rolling out of Unlikely as a film screening. It really encapsulated, all of the work that we would do in this area as it relates to equity and access and thinking about student success. I think it really drove home some really key conversations on campus among faculty and staff about our role in really helping students be successful and completing a credential. Social identity, implicit bias, even first generation, how do we support first generation students, disability, thinking about how we communicate with one another, equity, our international students. Those are all areas that are a focus in our professional development series. You'll also note that there are some examples at the bottom that note lynda.com. And I just wanted to include those to note that we're also doing a lot in the way of webinars and online professional development offerings because it allows us to reach a lot more of our faculty and staff. Next slide, please. Another cohort that we've been targeting, we've talked about before, is our Men in Nursing, our chapter of Men in Nursing. Just some highlights here. You'll see that that group has been doing outreach to students. You'll also know to high school students that they were doing outreach on campus as part of our STEAM week and also service. So you'll see them there, Prostate Awareness Month, and doing some conversations with student and community about men's health. And then on the left-hand side, or my left or right over in the corner, you'll see Ben Moorhan, who's one of our classified nursing faculty and one of our students. Our student presented at the national conference in Orlando, Florida. And we also had Ben, along with our director of nursing, do a presentation on our success coaching model in our CTE areas. So a lot of progress is taking place, and our Men in Nursing chapter is extremely active and really serving as a strong role model for other male nursing students. Next slide, please. The same thing with our women in CTE. We've been doing some outreach in that area where the women in those specific program areas just kind of come together and support each other and build a strong sense of community. And we found that to be extremely helpful to provide feedback for us as it relates to some of the things that we can do and change, but also just helping them support one another. Next slide, please. Our STEM Scholars Program, you all have heard us talk about this program before, and it continues to grow. If you look at the table that is presented, we kind of broke it down by the different to show the diversity of the diversity here in that group. We've grown from 15 students to 45. In our fall 2020 group, we actually have 17 students waitlisted. The number of first gen students is growing. The number of representation across a wide range of minority groups is growing. And then even in our fall 2020 group, we have one more female student than male, which is a great sign for us. It's important to note, and I know we said it before, that I mean, this is an award-winning program. The faculty lead has been award-winning, as well as the program in partnership with some of the work that we're sharing with Mott Community College. It is a partnership with four-year institutions. So what I wanted to share there with you is to just the diversity in regards to the programming that these students are transferring to study, as well as the different schools. One of our big partners in this grant is U of M. And so we have a lot of students transferring to University of Michigan into their engineering program. But again, we're seeing students look at a wide variety of areas of STEM. And this program is one of our goals this year with the program has been to make it a lot more part of the DNA of the college. And that is working really well. And those students are being supported in a way that we want to make sure that we're following for other cohorts of students. Next slide, please. Inclusion. I know that a lot of people on the call were actually at our November 7th, our November Economic Club meeting, when the guest speaker noted that diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. I think, as it was noted in the other two presentations, I think we're just very proud that this has become more about how we do things and not simply about something that we're doing separately. Really following that board policy and making that a part of what we do as a college innately. Next slide, please. So as we talk about diversity, I think it's important to highlight that we've been extremely specific in how we curate the different speakers for in-service. So for our fall speaker, we had Dr. Mark Rendondo Villegas, and he actually provided a unique generational perspective for our faculty, as well as topic as it relates to what they do in the classroom. The topic of hip hop was a really interesting interaction between our faculty and the speaker. And then the same thing for our winter in service, we had Dr. Paul Hernandez, who shared his story of how he pushed through from the streets of LA as a gang member, and how he translated, his life lessons into real talk and a pedagogy to help better connect with and better teach students. So we're seeing, a lot of really interesting conversations around, how we empathize and how we support our students in a lot of unique and different ways. Next slide, please. Our Martin Luther King Jr. program this year was a nice event. And one of the additions that we made with that event was our first annual Equity in Action Awards. We wanted to kind of set the bar for an award that just highlighted faculty, staff, and a partner in our community that supported us in a way that really showed, exemplified what equity looks like, what it should feel like for students and for our community. And so we were really proud to have Devin King, who is the community college liaison at the University of Michigan School of Information. They, at the School of Information, took the charge from the president there, very serious. And when they thought about a way to implement and think about diversity in the student body that they transferred into the college, they thought the best way to do that was to partner with community colleges. They have been serious and consistent about that. And they have been extremely welcoming to all kinds of students, very non-traditional students from Washtenaw Community College, and accepting and supporting our students in a way where students just probably did not see themselves at the University of Michigan. That it's been a beautiful thing to watch. And she was one of the awardees. Kristen Gapsky, who's the director of our Entrepreneurship Center, which is a center that hosts programs with students and pitch competitions from the age of 16 to 64 and everything in between. And so she just exemplifies diversity, and we wanted to really highlight the work that she's doing there at the center. And then the third person, we had to give this third person award because he had done so much on campus to really just highlight, who we are as a college as it relates to diversity and inclusion. And that was Zachary Baker, who is the volunteer lead for the Michigan Community College Gender and Sexuality Conference. Our Black Student Union students spoke. And we had a wonderful keynote from Lorraine Washington, who is a local community leader and attorney. Next slide, please. Here are some highlights from our Women's History Month. It's sad to say some of the events actually didn't happen because we left campus, but they were able to host their economic empowerment event. That was the theme this year. We had 2 students on the panel talking about women and economics. You'll see the nice centerpiece there with all the guests left, students, faculty, staff, and community with a nice piggy bank. It was a good conversation, and it has become an event annually that campus looks forward to. There's other events. We had another speaker come, and we were also hosting an event for Equal Pay Day and a poetry event, but we'll get those rescheduled when we're all back to normal. Next slide, please. And then finally, the last event I want to highlight was some just pictures from our Michigan Community College Gender and Sexuality Conference that was hosted on our campus. We were the leader in having and creating this conference, which now Grand Rapids Community College and other community colleges across the state are partnering to put together. But it was a wonderful event. It was a day and a half, Friday evening and all day Saturday. And it brought together such diverse groups of our students and community members. And it really was focused on inclusion and really supporting that from an academic standpoint. They had a very rich program. And it was definitely a proud moment for the college. Next slide. And in closing, I just would like to say, which we always end this presentation with a couple of things that we're thinking about for the future. One of the things that we really want to focus on next fall is creating with enrollment and recruitment all the way through academics and counseling and all of the different services we offer is a more defined first year experience for our students that really helps students, get on the right path and helps them along the way in a lot more of an intentional way, where we can kind of really lay a path for them with all the services and support that we offer. Our faculty have been extremely busy in looking at different and creative ways to our STEM pathways. There's been some pilot programs to do some supplemental courses to accelerate those STEM pathways for students. There have been some creative plans in place for this coming fall for both developmental math and developmental reading and writing. And then the final thing that we would like to focus on next year as it relates to this area, and these are not the only 3 things, but to really increase the input of our student on many of these campus-wide and annual events. Thank you all so much. And are there any questions?
I have 2 questions. It's Ruth Hatcher. First of all, is there an active search going on for Dean Jennings' position?
Trustee Hatcher, there was a search that took place, and we were just not as excited about the candidates as we thought we should have been. And so we're going to be posting that job soon. It would have been happening now, but we're going to be getting on that soon to get that position filled.
That's an intention that people want to do. And also, what effect do you see on the general student population of your cohorts? In other words, how much influence does the success of your cohorts show with the general population of students?
You know what? The one number that I will point to is that some of the things that we're doing I would say we learn from the cohorts, and then most of the policy work that we've done affects all students. So I kind of point to the fall 2016 number kind of as a nod that, we are, scaling things a little bit, but I think that we would have a better grasp on larger cohorts of students, which is why we think defining a first year experience where we're grabbing larger groups of students would be a lot more effective as it relates to persistence, retention, and ultimately completion.
Yeah, the first year experience is a good one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Bill. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Could you expand on the collegiate recovery program? How many students does that touch, and what kind of resources do we bring to bear for it?
I'm gonna have to defer some of those questions to EVP Blakey, but the one thing I do know that the current president is extremely active on campus, and he's been doing a lot of outreach as well as the advisor, but I'm not sure exactly how many students are in that program. I know they do a lot of integration with mental health and other things from the counseling department, but Linda might have something to add.
Does Dawn Farm work with us in any of those programs?
Yes, we work with them. They generally send students to us. We actually hired a permanent, we had kind of contracted with an advisor for that program in the first part of the program that we had, and then we identified a part-time, so now we actually have a permanent advisor for that program. And since we've gotten her on board, it's Teresa Herzog, that program has taken off. So we've had an expansion in the number of students and just the number of activities that they're doing and just outreach that they're doing with the general college community as well.
And what's the range of the number of students that we might see in a year?
I would say we have 10 to 25 students who are participating in that program, but it is growing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, Trustee Davis. Vicki Hearns, would you let me know how many, the number of foreign students from other countries that are represented in the scholarship cohorts?
I can find that out. I do not know. And one of the reasons is that those scholarship cohorts come from the high schools. So, I mean, how those scholarships are marketed are through the high schools. So it would depend on where the students are coming from. So but I can find out that answer. I don't know offhand. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And then I would imagine we have our WTMC, the Medical Technical School. Do we have any of those students represented as well in that program?
Not in the scholarship cohort, they would not be, because the scholarship cohort are new students coming to campus in the fall in that scholarship cohort, because those students are receiving the high school scholarships that we offer at each of the high schools.
I got you. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Do any other trustees have a question on the diversity and inclusion report? Okay, hearing none. Our next special report is transition to remote work, and we're still talking to Dr. Hearns. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to start off with highlighting the things that we've done in instruction. And I'm going to, this is what we've done probably in the last 3 weeks. So it's been kind of fast. You can move to the next slide, please. So a couple areas under instruction, the Bailey Library, the Center for Interactive Teaching and Learning, and that's the area that does all of our support for our online learning, technology, media services, the Entrepreneurship Center, the Teaching and Learning Center, and all our curriculum operations have been all moved online, all moved remotely. The library is providing remote tutoring, library instruction, and online library support. And I think you'll hear this multiple times. I think we're all probably in awe at how collaborative everybody has been in these moves and transition in a very short amount of time. They've done a wonderful job. Next slide, please. The Entrepreneurship Center, if anybody keeps up with the local news, we're very proud that our Entrepreneurship Center, along with our SBDC, they're continuing to conduct outreach to our local entrepreneurs, but they have been a part of a very large countywide financial initiative to support entrepreneurs. And they have been busy building cause and working with that group across the county to approve support and financial support for local entrepreneurs. The Curriculum and Assessment Office has continued to meet, so they're meeting weekly and preparing for our HLC visit. Next slide, please. The Center for Interactive Teaching and Learning, just some big highlights. In a very short amount of time, they issued over 350 GoToMeeting accounts for faculty and staff for remote teaching and remote meetings. We're experiencing that right now. And they also worked with department chairs and lead faculty to leverage our current online course content for remote teaching. So moving content from courses to make sure that faculty had what they needed to move remote and to conduct remote teaching. Next slide, please. Our Teaching and Learning Center, brought together a lot of different areas. And since March 11th, they've had 55 online webinars with 260 attendees. The TLC was extremely responsive in making the 2 days of prep that we had very relevant to the needs of faculty. And we shifted webinars and lunch and learns that had already been planned to accommodate what those needs were, what faculty really needed in that short amount of time. An open lab was held for one-on-one consultations. So the CITL department set up an area in the library where faculty could come set up technology, do one-on-one consultations on moving their classes and moving course content. And the CITL, along with the TLC, also hosted on our final Friday on campus with the faculty, a Q&A session that was extremely informative, peer-driven, and it had 5 live participants and 30 participants online. So 80 people attend that Q&A session as we prepare to go remote. Next slide, please. Faculty professional development. This is a faculty-run committee on campus, and they're a big part of the Teaching and Learning Center, and they work very closely with CITL. One of the things that was very, very helpful in our transition of instruction was prior to the crisis really becoming active in Michigan, they had started paying attention to what was going on at other schools and building a toolbox of resources for us to pull from. They also led many of the TLC sessions, and they continue to do that. They're responding to constant email questions, providing peer feedback to faculty, as well as being very helpful to me specifically in helping me understand what faculty pain points are taking place so that we can be responsive with content, feedback, and communication. Last week, Thursday, they hosted a very fun social hour, and they've been actively engaged in national conversations about the shift to remote teaching. On March 24th, they sent out a very, very extensive and helpful communication to faculty. They help guide faculty on talking empathetically to students, because students are experiencing a lot of challenges at this time. Next slide, please. And then one of the things that we got together really fast with the finance team is that once we had to close the library and we did not have a resource for students, the finance team was able to secure 100 Chromebooks that we were able to get to students. We were still, as of late last week, having drive-in drop-offs with students on campus, but we're very happy to note that we were able to provide, a good handful of students who did not actually have computers with the resource so that they can actually get their work done. Next slide, please. And then finally, the faculty and staff in the instructional division have been extremely active and coming to campus as much as they can about 2 weeks ago to get all of the PPE supplies that would be helpful in the hospital. So areas included culinary, photography, our science labs, our manufacturing faculty, and of course our healthcare departments have all come to campus and donated all the personal protection equipment that our hospital partners could use. And then finally, you see a fun picture there of Tom Pernard, one of our manufacturing faculty, who came to campus and did 100 3D prints of masks that were donated as well to the hospital. Next slide. Now, I think I'm gonna give this one more piece. I'm gonna add the other one about the face mask. In our non-credit area, we posted a free DIY face mask webinar. We've been offering these free workshops, and we've had over 100 registrations. There's already been 2 sessions and more to come. So really doing our part and being a part of the community. Next slide. Hi, so in the student services area, we had advantages because we already had an online application and an online registration process, but now we've taken kind of all the processing operations remote as well. We've had to have key staff be given special access so that they can access special tables and banners so that they can continue to complete applications. They can look at documentation and they can do all the communications for our inquiries and our applicants. Next slide. So the staff have adopted Google Voice numbers so that they can make calls and texting to students without revealing their own phone numbers. They're continuing to have huddles each day to kind of continue to figure out the priorities each morning. And the staff are working on developing a series of Facebook Live recruitment events that students will be able to participate in. Next. We're looking at onboarding, so we're in the process of training our student ambassadors, so they will conduct our student connect sessions remotely. Next. So our admissions office continues to process new and readmitting applications and all the documentation. Students can now upload any documentation, transcripts, other letters of support that are needed as part of the online application process. And our second tier admission staff are continuing to process all of our second tier or health application for this summer and fall classes. Next. We've also been actively reaching out to our F1, our international visa students. We needed to inform CVIS because international students have a limit on the number of online classes that they're able to take each semester. So of course we had to adjust that as we moved all our classes to a remote basis. And so we've informed CVIS, and then we're also continuing to communicate with those students to provide them support. Next. So our advising, coaching, and counseling and success coaching, we already had the ability to provide online advising, but now that's gone on steroids. And so now we provide career and academic advising either via online or the phone. In lieu of our face-to-face coaching sessions, we've set up go-to-meetings where we can continue to have sessions with our students. And during the registration process, students can still submit, if they run into a prereq issue during registration, they can submit the prereq override, and that's processed that same day. Next. So advisors, counselors, and coaches, they're providing outreach to their assigned students, and they're assisting students with resolving any barriers that have come up as the students have transitioned to accessing their classes remotely. Our care team continues to triage and assist students as we continue to get referrals from faculty or staff. Our collegiate recovery program, they've met on campus every Wednesday this semester, and they're continuing to have digital meetings every Wednesday in support of their students. We've also conducted a number of well-being checks based on the care team that we have done in the community since we've gone remote. Next. Our student records system staff, they continue to process grade changes. They're evaluating transcripts and posting transfer credits. We continue to process our graduation applications, and we are continuing to provide transcripts. So students who are requesting transcripts, we are able to still process their transcripts. We're also continuing to update the tools that students use regularly in my WCC, such as DegreeWorks for degree audit. Next. Our financial aid team, again, I think had a big advantage in that we already had tools that allowed students to submit any kind of required documentation via email or the phone. And so that was a big, huge advantage for us. Our staff, financial aid staff, continues to get updates from the Department of Ed. There's updates happening all the time to Title IV aid through our Pell Grants and loans. So we're keeping current on those changes and how they're going to impact our students. They also have kind of go-to meetings every day at 10:30 just to check in and get a grasp of any kind of issues that are coming up. Next. Our learning support services are able to take the accommodation letters that the students are eligible for and work with faculty. We've also been working with faculty on how to best provide those accommodations remotely. And then we can still have students get new accommodation letters for future semesters as needed. Next. Our testing center is working to provide AccuPlacer and ALEX placement testing remotely. We've gotten a new tool called Respondus, which is what we're using for our ALEX, which is our math placement test. AccuPlacer, we're working with College Board. That's a College Board product, and they're working on the proctoring protocols. And we also have some other tests like the TEAS test that's used for our nursing students that we're working on how to do those tests remotely because those are controlled by those agencies. Next. Our child care center staff, they're working remotely to update their classroom curriculum. They're also completing online training modules to help kind of improve their skills with the students. They wrote personalized notes to each child that's enrolled in the Children's Center this semester and sent those to their homes. Next. They also have been holding virtual circle times for the children to participate in. And they've started a Facebook page for parents to follow to kind of give kind of helpful hints for the parents that have their children at home during this time. And students, as they register for spring, summer, or fall classes, they can still register their children in the Children's Center, especially for the fall classes. They can still remotely sign up for their spots at the Child Care Center. Next. Our Adult Transitions Office, which is helping students with the GED preparation. They're continuing to work with those students in the community. They've had over 45% of their students contacting and using the remote tools. We have Plato, Mango, Burlington Software, which are all online tools the students have access to, and they can be working on continuing to prepare for their GED exam. Next. Our student development and activities have been busy kind of providing for remote activities. We still have student clubs that are able to meet remotely. They're planning a talent show with original student material and a remote dance event. They've also been organizing service projects. So they're working with students to produce and donate surgical masks that are drastically needed by our local hospitals. And they've also been holding a conversation lab to have students just connect as a group to discuss the topics that are related to this pandemic. Next. They've also, in the spirit of March Madness, the WCC Sports Office held a Wolfpack All-Time Sports Movie Bracket Challenge, and that's going well. And our Washtenaw Voice, although they're not printing a paper twice a month, they're continuing to write articles and put articles up on their website. They're doing several articles a week up on the website. Next. And now Gary Holman, our interim CIO, will present on ITS activities.
Good evening. As you can see, there's been a lot of creative work done by the faculty staff at WCC in this last couple of weeks, moving a lot of things online, and there's been a lot of things that have been requested of us that we've been scrambling, trying to figure out how to do, and just a lot of cooperation among the college. You'll see here a photo of handing out 120 laptop computers that we had to pull from labs and reconfigure them so that they could be used for faculty and staff, and then show the faculty staff how they could use them at home, the ones that didn't already have a laptop that they could use at home. And so there was a lot of training. You'll notice there in that photo that our staff in ITS all have masks and gloves on. That was the last, I think that picture was taken the last day that we were on campus. Next slide. So we have a virtual private network. There's a lot of the resources that we have on campus that are only accessible from the WCC network for security reasons. And so we've had a virtual private network in order to allow remote access to those things in a secure way, but not everyone had access to that. So we had to turn on VPN access for all of our faculty staff to be able to reach those resources that they could not get to from home. We've had 577 faculty and staff members that have connected to the VPN since March the 16th. So a lot of use there. We prepared 100 laptops. This is in addition to the Chromebooks that were purchased. We prepared 100 laptops for WCMC students to use at home. And then there's a communication out to students about free Wi-Fi hotspots in the region that are provided by Xfinity and Comcast. Next slide. We also conducted a webinar style training for our faculty staff so that they could learn quickly how to use a lot of these online resources that they're having to do now, either over the VPN or other ways that they had not had to know how to do from off campus. We had 80 faculty and staff attended the live training, and then we've had actually now 112 that have watched the recording. We continue to have people watching it that are learning how to do those things and doing very well. We've helped people on an individual basis as needed, but for the most part, faculty staff have been able to really adopt these new methods of working very quickly. We forwarded a lot of office telephone numbers to cell phones for those offices that needed to be able to answer a published number that was on the campus. We also set up all of our faculty and staff so that they would, any voicemails that they receive would be delivered to them through their email box so they can get to their voicemail from home. We had to purchase a bunch of licenses to expand our capability of having soft phones so that you could actually use your campus telephone number from a remote location. And we needed to do that in order that the offices, especially student services and in the Blackboard support in Central, that they would be able to answer call centers that we have set up from their soft phones on computers at home. And we've done that for a number of departments now. And in the meantime, before that happened, our national call center was answering all of our student services and ITS calls, and then scheduling appointments for the staff to call the students back at an appointed time. That's a mechanism we already had in place and had been using when a student would call in the evening when no one was there. Our national call center was already doing it, but of course we had to take all calls right when we first left campus. And now those departments, a lot of them are able to answer a lot of their calls during the business day now. I think that's the end of my presentation.
Okay. Are there any questions for VP Hearns, VP Blakey, or Mr. Holman here on this report?
I have a question for VP Blakey, please. This is Bill. With respect to our international students, what kind of a presence have we seen of ICE, either on campus or interacting with our members of our student body?
0.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? For
Yeah, I have a question. It's Ruth Hatcher. On any given day, who's working in the buildings at the college? Are there associates or deans or the vice presidents, or is it rotating? Who's there?
Hey, come back to me. Hi. Bill, do you want to answer that question, Bill Johnson?
Certainly. Trustee Hatcher, we have a very minimal staff. We really took sincerely the governor's order for full remote operations. So in the finance area, we have 3 individuals that do not come in on the same day to do some critical functions such as printing vendor checks, getting cash that has come in the mail from students, very minimal critical things. On facility side, we have a reporting system for any person that comes on campus. They must not only comply with the Washtenaw County Health Department requirements that each employee that comes on campus be screened to make sure they don't have symptoms of COVID, but also that they have to report into campus safety and they have to tell facilities where exactly they're going to be on campus. That's important because facilities then has one maintenance person that's on campus whose job is to go behind that person that came on campus and to disinfect each area that person who was on campus for. And then lastly, facilities also has a mechanic who comes on campus to once a day to monitor all the building systems to make sure that our systems are still operating correctly and we don't have any facility emergencies. That's all.
Thank you, Bill. And Trustee Fleming, may I continue? We also have our campus. We are on campus on a regular basis.
I didn't hear that. What was that?
Campus.
I'm sorry, Rose.
Can you hear me now? Campus security is also on campus in pretty much full force on a regular basis. Every department, for example, in my office, we have people take turns to come in to pick up the mail, to do whatever needs to be done that can't be done remotely. Like I know Larry was in the office just this past week, but every single office has a protocol established for their staffing. Linda has a protocol that she has established because there's quite a few, as you can imagine, with all the things that go on in her area, there's a big need to have staff on campus. Also, HR, human resources, personnel, they're here to for payroll, things of that nature. We have to provide a list of how many employees would have access to the campus because of the what is it, stay-at-home provision or whatever. And it was 165 employees that are on that list. And that list included all of the executives, which would be the vice presidents and the AVPs, as well as a list of other employees. So what happened is what we had to do is make sure that we knew who those people were that were going to have access to the campus. We also had to provide them with a letter. So if they were stopped on the way into the campus, they would be able to show that they were someone that was necessary. Identified as a person that was needed to operate the campus. And then there's also protocol that whenever someone comes on campus, now this again was something that was done by that everyone has to fill out. For example, Krista Haley, supervisor, so she answered the 3 questions that were on this form. So I knew that she was healthy, that she didn't have she wasn't in contact with anyone that had virus. And I forget what the 3rd question is, but there's 3 questions that everyone has to fill out. And so the protocol we have is that individual notifies their supervisor, their vice president, when they're coming on campus. They fill out this form, and when they're on campus, then we also notify campus security. So campus security can let them in, and we notify facilities because, as Bill mentioned, we need to have the area is completely sanitized in a very thorough and different way than usual once they leave the area.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dave.
With the remote learning transition, how many students were unable to transition due either to lack of hardware or lack of internet access. Do we have any count on that?
Kim,
Trustee,
did you want? Go ahead.
Trustee, we do not have a count on that exactly, but we've been really paying attention to what those needs were. It's actually really slowed down. You know, we're getting a couple requests for a couple of the laptops still. Initially, our biggest focus was on making sure people had access. So we definitely worked very collaboratively, me and Linda, some of the faculty, trying to figure out what resources were available. As it relates to internet access, most of the carriers have been extremely helpful in expanding what was available to students. So the students who are in rural areas are probably the biggest ones where we had some gaps, but I do think we found solutions for most of them. And then we had the concern about students who did not actually have hardware. And then we attempted to solve that for as many students as we could with the Chromebooks. Both Linda and I have been looking closely at the requests for refunds that have been coming in. And what we've noticed mostly is it's not been about the technology as we've attempted to solve that. It's just that a lot of the students do, and they're low, but a lot of the students do have a lot going on. But we don't have a specific number on what those needs were. We've also done a lot of outreach. We called every single student that's registered this semester just to make sure students were okay, that they knew services were available, all of our services remotely. And that seems to have helped out a lot. But it also is helping us figure out where we might have some gaps and we need to bridge some services together for students. So we're actively working on it, but we don't know an exact count on, how many students needed exactly what.
And if I may add to that.
Can we, as this resolves down the road, I'd be real interested in that sort of count and what sorts of numbers we were able to resolve with either hardware assistance or whatever other ways that we could resolve them. And I don't know if we would look at, for students that were unable to complete a class, rather than giving them a negative outcome on their grade, enable them to take the class next semester or something. Or I don't know if we extend withdrawals in a way that doesn't show up on the transcript. I'm just concerned about students who had problems with this transition having a negative reflection on their transcripts.
Okay, Kim, go ahead. We're probably going to say the same thing.
No, Trustee DeVarty, those are all concerns that have been active, every day since we've been doing this. And I have to say that the faculty have been above and beyond, as far as reaching out to students, alerting myself or the deans. We've been, immersed in student concerns in a way just to make sure that we're very hands-on and understanding what we can solve for. And so the faculty have been extremely concerned, and I think have been a great voice for the students to make sure that students do not have negative outcomes. And if there are challenges, that we can come up with a solution, whether, students need to withdraw and come back next semester or figure out something for spring, summer. And that will continue, through the spring, summer semester. And we definitely can have some report. We have some the feedback from a lot of the phone calls that we made, but those are definitely concerns that I know I have, the dean, the president, but I think most proudly the faculty have, and they're in touch with the students, constantly, and making sure and reaching out that they have what they need to be successful.
And if I may, sorry, it's so hard.
I was just going to say, I think a real heartfelt thank yous need to go out for the faculty and being go-betweens and trying to resolve these issues, because they're the point on a lot of this. And then one other concern I had. So some classes, and I'll just throw one out there as an example, welding. for example, how does it go online? Are there going to be classes that we cannot offer because of the inability for people to do them face to face?
Absolutely. And so for the winter semester, the welding classes and the classes that could not be put online or portions of it, we are working directly with the students to develop contracts to provide them with incompletes so that as soon as we are back online, we can work with them, you know, in their needs and their schedules to make sure that they complete the learning objectives that still need to be completed in those courses.
Good, thank you.
Trustee Fleming, Madam Chair, may I speak for a minute?
Yes, please.
Okay, also I'd like to compliment the College Advancement Department. Phil, I know you're on the phone. AVP Snyder, you want me to speak on your behalf? Okay, would you please share what we've done with the Student Emergency Fund?
Yes, we've
During this
actually
time?
taken it. Yes, this is Phil Snyder. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we've taken it completely offline. Luckily, most of our application process was automated already. So we have moved it completely off and we're able to take all the applications, respond within 24, sometimes 36 hours, vetting it with our internal committee. We've added another counselor from the college onto the team to help us vet them. And we've been able to turn it around in a day or two using credit cards to pay off the utilities, to pay off medical, and we're sending food cards through the mail. So the day we get a request, we'll process that. We've already purchased cards and we'll send them the next day through the mail.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about the transition report?
No, I just had a question for Mr. Holman in reference to the laptops, you know, given the light of this COVID-19 and not knowing just how long this is going to continue. So the laptops that have been given to the most at-risk students, is there, it's kind of like a two-in-one question. Are we tracking it? When will they give it back to us? You know, like what's the turntable? Are they going to just hold on to it and just, you know, when this COVID-19 subsides and we're able to get back to school, will they be required to return the laptop? Like that?
I think that's a question for VP Hearns because they were involved in identifying those students.
Oh, okay.
So we actually had a staff member and a kind of team of people who supported her. She's tracking. We had a sign-off sheet, a checkout sheet that every student signed when they took the Chromebooks from us. And the date to return is 30 days after we come back to campus. So we will, you know, we've been following up with those students, making sure that they are using the Chromebooks and everything's working okay for them and they're moving ahead with their courses. But as soon as we get back to campus, we do have a single point person that will be coordinating the collection of those Chromebooks back from those students.
Now, I haven't heard it personally, but I had gotten information that Governor Whitmer is supposed to close schools through the end of the year. If that is the case, will that affect us? And if so, you know, have you guys you guys meaning the executive administrative staff, taking that in consideration, just how we're going to move forward with all of our online instruction?
Yes, if I may answer that. If K-12 is closed, it will not affect us. To your second question, though, Trustee Davis, we meet every single day. And in those meetings, we probably meet at least 2-3 hours. And what we've planned and what we do, and fortunately, I mean really fortunately, we have a plan. And that, sorry about that. I don't even know where the other phone is. Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was wondering where the phone was. Anyway, back to my answer. I apologize for that. What we talked about is what we're going to do moving forward, the courses that we're going to have spring and summer. We're not planning on, we're focusing on where we're going. And I'm really grateful that we do have a strategic plan because of that, it has helped us maintain our focus in terms of the direction that we're going. And so we're really, even though this is a negative situation, there are so many positive initiatives that are coming out of it. And so to answer your question, if she closes K-12, and I believe she did today, I'm not sure, it will not affect us. We will continue to offer our programs. As a matter of fact, we're hoping some of the K-12 students, we plan on reaching out to them. There's a strategy for that already that VP Blakey's working on. We plan on reaching out to those K-12 students with online programming that we have available.
President Belanca, I lost your the end part of your statement, and I don't know if it's because your network has lost reception, but I didn't pick up anything.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now, but you waver in and out. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, so let me just say, I'll make this succinct. We do have plans to reach out to K-12.
Okay.
We have a very good online program, thanks to our great online department and their faculty that have been trained in it. And the enrollment, recruitment, retention, and the relationships that we have built with K-12. So we hope that they will look at us as their partners in all of this. It's also a good time for the students that Linda told me we're even start offering our bridge program this summer online, so that students can, even those that are going right to college, can, take that course ahead of time. So we are prepared. We are prepared to offer spring, summer. We are prepared to offer fall. Yeah, we are, and we're grateful. Very grateful.
Okay.
That's people have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Any other questions on the transition? Okay, we're going to move on to monthly reports. First up, the personnel recommendations, tab B of your packet. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the personnel recommendations as listed. Please remember to state your name. Do I hear a motion for this report?
So moved.
Okay, a second. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or discussion on the personnel report?
I just wonder if the new plumber is a UA member.
Trustee Hatcher, this is VP Johnson. I honestly, I don't know if they are a UI member, but they certainly are licensed. So
Okay.
I would assume so.
We don't want to offend any UA members.
Dave DeVarty with a question.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
The full-time ending employment for economic and college development, there's a digital marketing specialist and a web programmer. Are either of those departing employees a part of the IT redeployment, or are these totally separate?
Totally separate.
Positions that'll be re-upped or replaced, or are they gone?
We're evaluating that right now, Dave, in terms of what we're going to fill and how we're going to fill it.
Okay, thank you.
Were there any other questions for the personnel recommendations? Okay, hearing none, please remember to state your name with your vote. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Chair Fleming,
Yes. Chair Fleming, yes.
Vice Chair Milliken,
Milliken, yes.
Treasurer Davis,
Davis, yes.
Secretary DeVarty,
DeVarty, yes.
Trustee Hatcher,
Hatcher, yes.
Trustee Landau,
Landau, yes.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
McKnight Morton, yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to tab C, the financial report. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees receive the financial reports for February 2020. Please remember to state your name. Do I hear a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Milliken supports.
Thank you. Is there any, well, I'll ask VP Johnson, would you like to add to this report for us?
Yes, please. Just a couple of comments. The board should note that year-to-date February, prior to the COVID pandemic event, was right on track to offer the college a forecasted surplus of about $2 million for the year. Revenue in property taxes and state aid specifically are trending above budget, and tuition slightly below budget, but that's now been impacted, as I noted, by the pandemic event. It's a bit early for us to give the board an accurate forecast as to what that will really do to our spring summer enrollment, but the year-over-year trends so far are trending below budget and also below last year. As a result, the college for the last 3 weeks has been working very hard to respond and react to this event. We're doing a number of things. So, for instance, we're waiving for spring summer. We're waiving all requirements for students to start to make payments towards their enrollments for spring summer. We are going to be lifting all financial holds for students so that they can enroll for spring summer. We're looking at all our online offerings and really bolstering those offerings for our spring summer classes. We're really trying to leverage all the strengths of our programs to try to find something that resonates with students that might otherwise be grappling with a lot of issues other than school, and yet to try to keep them engaged. As a result of that, we believe, although it's hard to quantify exactly, we believe that that the spring summer revenue for tuition will be lower than budget, and it's not just tuition revenue that's being impacted. So, for instance, when we shut down the fitness center, when the college went into remote operations, that has an impact on revenue. When we canceled all our face-to-face courses for our non-credit side while we're in remote operations, that has an impact. When the conference center is closed down as a result of this event, that has an impact. So all of those elements are having an impact on our revenue for this year. And we believe that there could be some ripple effect into the fall as well, although it's much too early to put a finer point on that. So as a result, in addition to the revenue efforts that we put in place to try to really help to offset those other losses, we are looking at some of our capital projects, the large projects. So both the ATC building and the ML renovation. At this point in time, we have opted to put those on hold. We believe that's the prudent thing to do until the college has a better read on that. In addition to that, we've also looked at a number of our deferred maintenance projects, those that we haven't yet started, and we are putting most every one of those on hold as well. There's a couple that are of safety and security in nature that we believe we need to go ahead with, but every deferred maintenance project that's non-essential for right now, we are going to put on hold until we get a better read on exactly what the revenue impacts are going to be. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, any trustees with questions?
Yeah, this is Landau.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, Bill, assume for the moment we're shut down through September with anything other than online classes. What's our burn rate and when do we start to panic?
Well, the good news is the college has been positioned well for online courses. And so for spring, summer semester, on a typical spring, summer semester, our online credit hours would be about 40% of our credit hours. And that compares to a fall or winter where it's 25%. We believe that we'll be able to capture the majority of our face-to-face enrollments for spring, summer through online, although we do believe that there will be some loss. My best guess is, and it's just a guess, is that loss for spring, summer will be somewhere in the 20 to 30% range in terms of credit hour loss. So that's that loss would be about $2 to $2.5 million of revenue loss from tuition. If you were to assume that our ML building was closed through the summer, the most significant impacts of that would be related to our trades training programs, iron workers, masons, UA, and that's not significant net revenue to the college, but of course has a significant impacts on our trade partners and the surrounding greater Ann Arbor area. So I would say that that the net impact of all that is significant, but it's not so significant that we can't readily weather that storm through September without any significant dilution to our reserves.
Just another question. There is some speculation that this could blow up again in September, October, which I assume would have a more substantial impact. What steps, if any, would you recommend that we take in the event we were shut down in the fall, winter?
Once again, the largest share of our revenue for the fall is going to be tuition and fee revenue, and our faculty have done just an amazing job of transitioning courses. Now that doesn't address every single course we have on campus. There's a lot of labs and those things that are going to take a lot more innovation for us to deliver. But in the main, the majority of our courses can be offered in online and in various forms of online, as each course has a kind of a unique character to it related to online. So while I think that there is the potential in your scenario that we could have revenue loss, that I think the steps that we're starting to take right now around all non-essential spending, especially in the capital and on the deferred maintenance side, along with re-looking at our budget for next year, which is why that President Blanca had recommended to the board that we delay the presentation of our fiscal 21 budget to the board until a month later, that we are going to take a real critical look at our budget and come up with a phased approach towards spending next year that gives the board a lot of tools to manage for this uncertainty.
One last question. I know that the governor has instituted a hiring freeze for all state positions. Would it be prudent for us at this juncture to have a hiring freeze on any new positions?
I think we are, as a senior leadership team, we are looking at a number of options. And so I think over the next few weeks here, that we are going to look at a number of options, which could include hiring freezes, but could include other things as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other trustees with questions?
I have a question. Bill, there's one line item that I was wondering about on the expenditures, the general administration institutional services, with a variance of $1.3 million. Can you explain what, and if it looks like we've already almost reached our total budget for this year, for this annual budget. Can you give us a little explanation on that?
Certainly. That line, Trustee DeVarty, that's the line that includes the assumed savings from open vacancies, staffing, and faculty vacancies. And so that line, if we're hitting our goals, that line should be negative, meaning that we're over budget there, because the vacancies don't happen in that line; they happen in all the other lines.
Gotcha. I've asked that question, and then I'm not sure where I should raise it as we're for next year's budget. I know when we look at the impacts on enrollment that we've seen with demographic trends and economic trends, that I realize that's not fair. Determinants or influences of enrollment level is the state of the economy and the level of unemployment. And as people are unemployed, it's an opportunity for them to transition into new educational opportunities. And I'm wondering if that's being considered at all, as since we're well positioned for online learning among community colleges in the state, this could potentially present us with an opportunity to grow our enrollment.
Hey, do you want me to answer that, Bill?
Certainly.
Yes, it certainly can. Yeah, no, it certainly can. And I will look at that.
God, I can't hear what's going on.
And you're right, it is something, it is.
I'm not hearing Rose.
That's when increased enrollment is when the economy tanks. This is such a different time.
You can't hear her.
We're worried about like the governor's Reconnect program. She vetoed that, which I understand. That would have been great. It was training for people over 25. So I think what is good is that our tuition has remained low. We plan on keeping it that way. But I don't know things of that nature.
May I jump in right quick before someone else presents a question? This is Trustee Davis. If we all can make sure that our microphone is on mute because it is interrupting the person that is speaking. I just wanted to mention that right quick. If you can just double check to make sure that your mic is turned off when you have completed speaking, that will help out a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on the financial report? Okay, hearing none. We will go on to the facilities development report. Okay, I will once again hand it to VP Johnson. Would you like to add anything to the facilities report?
Trustee Fleming.
Thank you. We had two major projects that were still going on. One was the replacement of the Energy Center cooling towers, and the second was the maintenance, the major overhauls of the Energy Center chillers. Those were two main projects still going on. As a result of the COVID event and the stay-home policy, we've had to shut both of those projects down. We were about a week away from having both of those done. It was really hard to shut them down, but we felt that we needed to do that. As we get back to knowing when we can return back to campus, we have a plan to get those two projects done. The other thing that I will tell you, just a point of interest, in the campus repair and maintenance section of this report, we have the SEMCOG pathway project, and the county has deemed that project to be essential, and they are continuing to do work on it, which has required for our staff to be on site as they're doing work along our right-of-way. So I just wanted the trustees to know that that project is ongoing. And then lastly, I would say that there are a number of projects on this list that are, as I said before, that we are slated to start, but we've paused on it. We paused until we get a better read on the revenue impact of the COVID event. And that's all.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on any of these deferred projects. Even though, because there are still people in the buildings, are we violating any OSHA requirements, or are they postponed as well?
Trustee Hatcher, those so every one of our projects in the buildings have been put on hold during this time.
Okay, and there's no problem with OSHA in putting things like that on hold?
There's no problems. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing of the state of the equipment that creates a hazard for our staff at this time.
Thank you.
I have a point of order. Do we need a vote on to accept the financial report? So we should, on the financial report. I think we moved it, but we should vote on it.
Yes. You are correct. Yeah, you are correct, trustee. And we'll go back and do that now. Are we done with the facilities development report? Okay. I apologize, Vanessa. Let's go back and do the roll call vote for the financial report.
Do you need a motion?
I thought we moved it and seconded. I remember.
We moved and seconded?
Yes.
Please call the roll, Vanessa. I'm sorry.
Chair Fleming?
Chair Fleming, yes.
Vice Chair Milliken?
Milliken, yes.
Treasurer Davis?
Davis, yes.
Secretary DeVarty?
DeVarty, yes.
Trustee Hatcher?
Hatcher, yes.
Trustee Landau?
Landau, yes.
Trustee Knight Morton?
Knight Morton, yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. My apologies on that point of order. Thank you, Trustee Davis, or DeVarty for reminding me of that. We are now moving on to the remarks of the Board of Trustees. Who would like to make remarks? Do any trustees want to make a remark at this time?
I just want to jump in real quick and say, I pray that everyone is safe. My sister got tested and she is positive. Thank God she still feels okay, but however, be that as it may, mom got tested, so she's under the weather at this moment. So I probably will have to get tested. So pray for us. We'll pray for you. This is very serious and fast moving. And I pray also for the safety of our faculty and staff, namely because we will not be where we are today without you all and be on this call to make this happen. And I truly appreciate all the work that you guys are doing behind the scenes, literally now behind the scenes. And so please stay safe, and want to be able to hug and shake hands and do what we're not able to do right now. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Davis. Would any other trustees like to make a comment? Okay, hearing none. Go ahead, Dr. Blanca, with the president's remarks.
I understand you couldn't hear me before. Is this better?
Yes, that sounds better.
Oh, great. Okay,
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank the community for supporting the college and the millage. It seems like, all this has taken place, and it's hard to believe that was just a couple weeks ago. But they supported us 80% of a vote, and we appreciate that, and we will work very, very hard. As we always have in the past, we will continue to do all we can to meet this community's needs. It's our honor, and we love doing it. We want to do it. So we're happy that they have faith in us. And secondly, I too would like to thank the faculty and the staff. It's difficult to even put in words what's happened the last couple of weeks, to see how every single person is working collaboratively. And although I never do this, because as leaders, we're supposed to always take the back. We stand back, and that's a good thing. But I really want to thank this team that's sitting in front of you. They have done an amazing job working 24/7 to support all the people that report to them. And our whole focus is on that student and making it the best experience for them. And I'd like to thank the board for having confidence in us. So thank you. That's it.
Okay, we're moving on to old business, tab E. We're going to talk about the Health and Fitness Center men's hot tub renovation. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve a construction contract with Baranuzzi Contracting in the amount of $163,000. Do I hear a motion to support this? I need a motion.
I move that we issue the bid for or undertake the bid for the Health and Fitness Center men's hot tub renovation project.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this project? Okay. Hearing no discussion, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Chair Fleming,
Chair Fleming, yes.
Vice Chair Milliken,
Milliken, yes.
Treasurer Davis,
Davis, yes.
Secretary DeVarty,
DeVarty, yes.
Trustee Hatcher,
Hatcher, yes.
Trustee Landau,
Landau, yes.
trustee McKnight Morton.
McKnight Morton, yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to new business, tab F, the proposed revisions to policy 2030. VP Blakey, would you like to talk to us about this?
Yes, thank you. This policy is going to propose a change for how we treat students who have lived in Michigan. If you remember a few years ago, we brought, can we move to that tab, please? A few years ago, remember that we had updated our residency policy to allow students who had DACA status, just the deferred action for childhood arrivals. So students who had DACA status who had been brought here as a child and had graduated from a Michigan high school or a U.S. high school were able to get DACA status, and we allowed those students to establish residency like we would for a citizen or asylee or someone who had permanent residency. Starting in September of 2017, the federal government is no longer issuing DACA status to individuals who would be eligible. Students who have DACA can still kind of get it renewed, but they're not issuing any new DACA status to new students or to new individuals. So what we have found is that our institutions across the state and even locally at the University of Michigan and at Eastern Michigan University have basically taken what would have been the DACA status and allowed students to establish residency via that way. So this policy would basically look at students who attend an accredited Michigan high school for at least 3 years and then either graduate from a Michigan high school or get their GED in Michigan, would be able to establish their residency, have either in-district, out-district, or out-of-state residency status based on where they live. So basically, we would be treating them as if as a permanent resident or a refugee or asylee and allowing them to establish residency. Right now, under our current residency policy, these individuals are classified as international students and be charge the international student tuition rate. So again, this change would basically align us with what University of Michigan and Eastern Michigan University are currently doing. We've had students who have applied to both those institutions and been coded as an in-state student, and then they're coming to us and we're our current residency policy having to charge them international. So this proposal would basically allow us to look at where they've attended high school and be able to have them establish residency as long as they've been in Michigan for at least the 3 years and graduate from a high school.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for VP Blakey on this?
What's the time sensitivity of this matter?
We would, well, whenever this would be put in place, so if we wanted to if you wanted to vote on this in April at our next meeting, we could still have that impact the spring, summer semester.
So we don't feel a sense of urgency on this? Okay.
No, so April would be fine.
Okay. Any other
comment?
Go ahead.
I have a comment that's not particular to this policy, but as I was looking through online at our policies, which is what the public would look at, some of them are not very well organized or aligned or edited. And I'm wondering if, when all of this is over, does someone look through the policies regularly to edit them and correct them, or what's the deal?
May I answer that?
Please.
Thank you. Actually, I should say, Vanessa, do you want to answer that? Because right now she has a project going on, and so does Larry Barkoff. Do you two want to talk about it, or do you want me to speak about it?
I can do it. Doesn't matter.
Okay, Vanessa, why don't you? That would be good.
Right now, I have a member of my staff that's looking through all the board policies, and we're looking at when they're out there. And we're going through them and looking through that and seeing if how the policy was approved. And I have to check with Larry to see if it was approved with the typos and incorrect, can we change that? So that's happening right now as we speak, actually.
Great, thank you. You might want to look at 4055 particularly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this policy?
I just, Divardi, Dave Divardi, I just want to thank the staff for recognizing this and suggesting this change that puts us in support of people that would otherwise qualify for DACA if it was still available, and to keep us in concert with the local four-year state universities. I really compliment you for bringing this policy to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this policy? Okay, we're going to move on to tab G, the recommendation for new programs for 2020-21. VP Hearns, would you like to talk to us about this?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Just real briefly, what is presented before you in new programs is a Transportation Technologies Associate in Applied Science. Our transportation, auto service, motorcycle departments actually merged this past fall. One of the things that they wanted to do was to leverage the expertise and really focus on industry demands as it relates to a broader perspective of technology of transportation. So you'll see that new associate degree presented there, and also changes to their advanced auto service technician certificate. In addition to that, our automotive cybersecurity certificate, as we continue to move and cars become more like computers, our faculty in that area saw a need to respond to analyst jobs and other jobs that are, like, as we speak, being created in cybersecurity. We're seeing a lot of focus in that area, and they're very excited about that program. The other ones are kind of administrative, but they require presentation to the board. Our management certificate in business had been an advanced certificate, and it really should be a certificate. So we're bringing that back for presentation. And then these are 3 articulation agreements, and normally 3+1s or articulation agreements would not automatically come to the board, but because these will be set up as programs so students can actually select them, we're presenting these articulation agreements as well. Any questions?
Where is Rowan University?
Rowan University. Why do I want to say Indiana, but I can't remember offhand. I think most of that program is online. It's like another one that we saw not too long ago. And these 3+1 articulation agreements really offer the students a large amount of credit hours before they have to transfer. So that's why we'll put those into the system as programs for selection.
Thank you.
This is Trustee Davis. How many articulation program agreements do we have?
We have hundreds of articulation agreements, but again, not all articulation agreements come to the board. So only the ones that we're going to set up as programs for students to select are the ones that we'll bring to the programs. So we have over hundreds of articulation agreements over a broad number of schools across the state and some out of state, like this one at Rowan University.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rowan University's in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on tab G? Okay, moving on to tab H, the recommendation to discontinue programs. Back at you, VP Hearns.
Okay, so now these programs that are being presented to be discontinued actually match to some degree what we're bringing as new programs. So you'll see automotive services and collision repair. Those are programs that have been updated in those new programs. And so we're presenting these all to be discontinued. And then facility and energy management and sustainable building practices are programs that never quite got off the ground, as well as some other 3+1 agreements that just were not renewed with those schools. And so we're presenting all of these to be, all of these for discontinuation.
Okay, any questions on these?
Is there any, I have a question about the College for Creative Studies. I'm surprised, is that because those students were using it, or do you know why that one is being discontinued?
You know what, they just changed some of their policies and didn't update this one, but we still maintain a really strong relationship with the College for Creative Studies. One of the things that is unique in our digital media arts program is they actually work individually with the students to present their portfolios for transfer, and they usually negotiate better transfer individually for students based on the skills that they've honed at Washtenaw Community College. And so, you know, discontinuing some of these programs doesn't mean that relationship is no longer there. Something may have changed on the school's behalf, and we may have just found a better way to work through a partnership for our students.
I'm glad to hear that. It's important for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on tab H? Okay. Moving on to tab I, the resolution to recommend the allowable 2019-20 ad valorem tax rate. VP Johnson, would you like to talk to us about this?
Sure, thank you. This is for the trustees. Each year we bring two different motions related to the upcoming year's property tax to the board. This is the first of two. The Michigan Community College Act requires that the board give guidance to the college administration when preparing its upcoming year's budget, whether or not that we should assume that when estimating property tax revenue, that we can assume that the board would approve the maximum allowable property tax rates when calculating those estimates for property tax revenue. And so this is the motion that we would ask the board to consider at the next meeting to give us that guidance. That's all.
Okay, do any trustees have questions on tab I? Okay, hearing none, we now are going to adjourn the meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
A second. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on adjournment? Hearing none, Vanessa, please call the roll.
Chair Fleming,
Chair Fleming, yes.
Vice Chair Milliken,
Milliken, yes.
Treasurer Davis,
Davis, yes.
Secretary DeVarty,
DeVarty, yes.
Trustee Hatcher,
Hatcher, yes.
Trustee Landau,
Landau, yes.
Trustee McKnight Morton.
McKnight Morton, yes.
Thank you, everybody. We did it. Meeting adjourned.